According to the Washington Post, thousands of influencer dietitians are being paid to share information that could potentially shape eating habits of many Americans.
Don't believe everything you read or see on social media, and always follow the money. I am going to sound like a conspiracy theorist when I say that, but that is the reality. And last summer, there was a crazy campaign that came out that I want to talk about specifically today to give us all perspective on this system, or kind of like this matrix that we're stuck in, that we ultimately kind of have to outsmart in order to kind of like reach our potential.
The food industry has a really long history of using their funding to make it less obvious that they're the ones giving you the message. They have paid for research studies to be done showing that there isn't a negative effect of sugary drinks on health. We did a paper 15 years ago showing that those studies were different.
So there was an article that went viral last summer. The article was called "The Food Industry Pays Influencer Dietitians to Shape Your Eating Habits." So basically in this article, they discovered that there were about 35 posts from 12 health professionals on social media that were all part of this coordinated campaign that was by the American Beverage Organization, which is a traded lobbying group that represents the likes of like Coca-Cola and PepsiCo. Basically, this trade group paid an undisclosed amount to these 12 registered dietitians, as well as one physician and a fitness influencer, who basically used their social media accounts to kind of like soften the blow that came from when the WHO claimed that aspartame, which is, a mainstay of Diet Coke and other sodas, was ineffective actually for weight loss and possibly a carcinogenic. That's what the WHO claimed. So honestly, good on the WHO for saying that. But that was kind of why this campaign started, because obviously Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, all these companies that use aspartame want their product to sell, of course. So they're going to do whatever they can to put out there in social media, not just even in studies, guys. I'm talking like social media influencers to influence the minds of us and our parents, the older parents, people in hospitals, doctors, everybody. The hashtag that was used by these professionals, these influencers, was hashtag safety of aspartame. And I'm not talking like, people like my size, right? I'm talking like millions of subscribers all over social media. So there was just this clearly coordinated campaign by 12 of these people. And that was the hashtag that was used, right? So it's not so terrible. Let's hop into it a little bit further though. So the videos that they had on social media are honestly no longer up here. So I can't exactly show you what they were. I'm going to show you these are some of them here. This is the quickest glimpse that we can get.
But why discourage people to use non-sugar sweeteners? If WHO really wants to implement new policies, maybe they should focus on ways to make fruits and vegetables more accessible and affordable rather than just using clickbait based on low-quality science.
So that was a post paid for by American Beverage. It goes against warnings from the WHO about the artificial sweetener aspartame. Now, we reached out to the influencer for comment, but have not heard back.
But they were all removed. They were all taken down after this came out. What's interesting is that none of the amount that these influencers were paid was disclosed by any of these companies. And again, all the influencers took their stuff down, and the influencers immediately kind of tucked their tails underneath them and scampered away, because obviously it's ridiculous. Obviously it's absurd. Let's talk about the Academy just a little bit. So it's called the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and it's a trade group that oversees registered dietitians. So there are tens of thousands of dietitians that are members of this group. And what's interesting is that this organization is tied to the food and ultra processed food industries, including Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Nestle. And it's basically allowed these companies to provide continuing education courses to its actual dietitians, and has invested in the actual food industry stocks. So, it's a little bit comical, because these companies that are like Coca-Cola and PepsiCo and Nestle, those are providing food education to the nutritionists, is wild. That's insane in and of itself. Two of the Academy's sponsors are actually the American Beverage and Tate and Lyle, which is one of the world's largest producers of high fructose corn syrup and other sweeteners. So, if you think about it, what is the agenda of these companies? It's to generate profit, to sell their product, right? None of us are stupid. I'm director of sales where I work at. We all understand what's going on here. And this kind of goes into why it's been so challenging to have a study done by, carnivore or animal-based. No one wants to fund these studies. It's very challenging for people to get that done, because it would probably make a lot of processed foods look pretty bad. But all of this making a lot of sense, because then if we're going to look at this food pyramid here, like if I can't even look at this and take it seriously anymore. I never did in the first place, but it's just a perfect view of how skewed all of this is. And it's just a great reminder for all of us. If we're just looking at this food pyramid, you can see at the very top, everything that's green, and at the very bottom, everything that's red. And like the most average Joe out there is going to know that green means good, red means bad. And at the very flipping bottom of this thing is ground beef. And near the very top is Cheerios. It's like, you really just can't make it up. This is actually what's happening. But the other twist to this story is that, quick one here, you guys. So I know how challenging it can be sometimes to find a local farmer. And that's why I want to share with you my farmer. This guy has the whole thing down 100%. I have never had better tasting meat in my life. I'm not just saying that. You know, I don't tell you about things that I don't actually use myself. It's called Suretail Creek Farm. This is a pound of ground beef, and I have one of these, at least one a day, as well as their eggs. And I love everything else that they have on there. They have so much variety. They have organ meats, they have pork, they have chicken, everything that you would need. But if you are in need of a local farmer and you want somebody that's raising animals regeneratively and you want something that tastes good and there's no hormones added, I highly recommend these guys, because this is literally how I live my life. Everything I eat comes from these guys, not even kidding. They will ship anywhere in the country. If you use the link below, they'll actually provide a discount automatically. And if you are looking to actually save a lot of money in costs, because I know meat can be expensive, then I recommend buying it in bulk. Get a half cow, get a full cow, split it with some neighbors or some friends or some family, and then you can get the meat hyper discounted, along with all the rest of the stuff that you can get on there too. So anyways, you guys, link is below, and let's get back to the show. Even in this scenario, the people or the companies, the products that were listed on this chart, I should say, also provided financial support to the Academy. And the Academy is the organization that provided these nutrition guidelines. You always have to follow the money. You always have to follow the money.
How can you make money with such a stupid idea?
And how can you not make money with such a brilliant idea?
And if we look at a history of financial ties, we have seen this before. This goes back to, Crisco in the 1950s and then going into the 60s, where basically they paid the American Heart Association to recommend Crisco as the solution to help prevent heart disease. And if we look at these charts here, we can see specifically this one is having to do with heart disease, which it has skyrocketed since then. And if we're to look at this one, it's specifically looking at obesity, which has skyrocketed since then. Look at it's the 1960s, 1950s. And, these organizations are paying each other off to get their product in front of an audience to make sales. Another example of this is when we look back at the Sugar Association, and there were 3 Harvard professionals that basically minimized the effects of sugar. Even the New York Times covered this, which is kind of wild, but it says that, one of the scientists basically were part of a trade group called the Sugar Research Foundation, known today as the Sugar Association. And it paid 3 Harvard scientists the equivalent of about $50,000 today to publish a 1967 review of research on sugar, fat, and heart disease. And the studies used in the review were handpicked by the Sugar Group. The article, which was published in the prestigious New England Journal of Medicine, minimized the link between sugar and heart and health and cast aspersions on the role of saturated fat. So if we think about how we got in the place that we're at today, specifically with our health, where the average person is on 17 medications, that is no joke. The average person is on 17 medications. And then about 50% of our society in the United States is obese. I'm not talking fat. I'm not talking a little bit overweight. I'm talking obese. Like, this way of influencing the public clearly is not new, because this happened with the Sugar Association. This happened with, Crisco and the American Heart Association. Now the medium has moved to social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. It's like, even with me watching me, like, you should question everything I'm saying. Without that, it's just essentially doing the same thing of just following somebody because they're like, oh, I have an idea and this is great. Like, this isn't new. This is how we've landed ourselves in this position. But now we can be aware of it. We actually can finally catch on and change the game. I actually brought on a guy named John Abramson, and John, he is this wealth of information. He signed an NDA because he was the official litigator for the largest criminal case in United States history, is against big pharmaceutical. And he had access to the hard drives that the big pharmaceutical companies were actually using that showed, the private documents that a CEO would use or a head of marketing would use, what they use, what the detail is. And he can only share like a sliver of the information that he got. And he talked about that with me.
I had access literally to the hard drives from the drug companies. from the executives, from the scientists, from the marketing people.
In this video, in this interview, but he goes into how deep this can go, specifically with big pharma and big food. So if you're looking to get more information on that, I highly recommend that you watch that conversation. For the very least, it's just anything to understand for your parents or to understand for your kids or for yourself, and ultimately how to improve your life. Because the whole point of all of this is not to sound like a conspiracy theorist. The whole point is not to sound like, a crazy wacko, which I'm sure plenty of people are going to say that about me. It's so that we can unravel the truth. Like, I don't care, if I'm wrong or if this turns out to, whatever, somebody's going to say I'm wrong and give me more realistic data. But actually what we found, all of this is accurate. These social media influencers did do this, and they were paid off by these big food organizations to tout the benefits of aspartame, which we all know, and it has been found to be potentially a carcinogenic, aka cancer causing. And so everybody's going to say what they're going to say. Oh, somebody's a conspiracy theorist. Oh, somebody's just, in a animal-based carnivore cult, like whatever it is. And really, it's not that. I don't even care. It's just identifying truth. Anyways, I thought this was crazy interesting because it just shows how we have to be so sensitive to this information. And there is truth out there. There is positivity. This isn't like the world's falling apart. We've always been like this. Clearly, that's the way. But it's up to us to be really aware and really try to understand and find truth and really seek to open our minds and keep things fresh, keep challenging ourselves and challenging other organizations, and stay aware that mostly every processed food out there is probably not good for us, because we're seeing this time and time again. So anyways, you guys, hope you like this. I talk about all things human optimization, exploration, life hacks. I'm a coach in the carnivore and the animal space. So if you need a little bit of guidance, let me know, drop your comments below. But I love talking about all this kind of stuff because the whole point is to reinvent our realities, to become the person that we're supposed to be, because we have so much more in this world. And my goal is to always bring that to all of us. There's so much more out there than what we've been taught and sold and told. And hopefully anybody who's watching this can actually see this as a way to feel inspired to reach their potential. Make your own channel, find your health, look the way you want to look, feel the way you want to feel, play with your kids, act the way you want to act, all of it. And that's possible. So hopefully you guys like this. Drop a comment below, liked it if you like it, share with some friends and family so we can get this absurd information out there so more people are aware. And as always, subscribe, please. The more subscribers that we have, the bigger audience base that we can have, the bigger guests that I can have on, and the more truth we can unravel. Anyways, guys, I appreciate it. I will see you on the next one. See ya.